Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Mo, the Gnostic warrior, founder of the Order of the Gnostics, and another beautiful morning, a little bit foggy today, on my walk and talk for this Thursday morning. I hope you guys are all having a great day out there, and using a different phone today, so hopefully this video broadcast comes out a little bit better than yesterday. So, in any event, the last video broadcast, I apologize, I was sideways, and my comments were sideways, so that video didn't get a whole lot of views, you know, and I don't blame you guys. Just trying to figure out, sometimes this technology goes awry. But the title of today's video, The Walk and Talk, The Walking Philosopher, Mo, is why. Basically, I think I titled it, if I'm not correct, basically the science of demonic possession, why people are being taken over, why they're crazy, why they're schizophrenic, etc. And I wanted to explain this. And I wanted to talk about this subject that's very dear to me, and I'm going to tie it to the ancient teachings as well. So I first want to talk about the word demon. The word demon, here I am again, disconnection issues. The word demon, just so you guys know, it actually comes from the word daemon, and it's a Greek word that means all wise, all knowing, intelligent. Okay, and it was the Latin Church Fathers, when they started the church, that they basically compiled all these demons and daemons, and they made them devils, and they made them evil. And essentially what these daemons were to the ancient Greeks, and who we could say the Phoenicians, who were the progenitors to the Greeks, was that these daemons were their ancestral spirits. Okay, so naturally, when Rome had sought to, conquer Greece and absorb the Greco-Egyptian Empire, they had to issue some propaganda out there to fight their own Gnosticism and their own race religion at the time. As I had mentioned before, all the religions before the Catholic universal religion, Catholic meaning universal, they were all essentially race religions, tribal religions. And it was the Church Fathers, who of course we know today, who went after the other factions, the other tribes, the other competing Gnostic sects, the other competing, etc., and they had to issue propaganda in order to defeat them. So first they defeat them by their thoughts and their will, and then by their words. And that's how it's been since the beginning of this age, which has been an information war, and a war on all tribes and all people. So that's kind of where we get the word demon, and why it has kind of a negative concept today, because of the propaganda that has been issued over centuries by the church. And this is kind of what factions do against each other, right? When, one political opponent doesn't like another one, they issue propaganda against that person. They might say things that aren't true. We see that in real time, right? With the elections and what's going on in politics and the media. Everybody's lying, right? And we're able to see this in real time. So, did this not happen in the past? When they were fighting against one another, whether it be the Roman Church fighting against the Greeks, etc., in Greco-Roman Egypt, wouldn't they have issued propaganda and lies against their foes? So that's kind of what we have today in the Gnostic history movement. So that's kind of why I'm not a big fan of following too much Gnostic history. Some guys out there, that's all they talk about is what the Gnostics did 2,000 years ago, and all this knowledge that we have today is based on the propaganda of the victors that gave us that knowledge. So you have to kind of weed through all this shit and propaganda to find the truth. Hey, thank you, Joe, for sharing the video. Max. So, in any event, getting back to the demons and demon possession and what I think is happening out there, and this will all parlay back to Egypt, okay? And As I had mentioned yesterday in my podcast, all the ancient teachings, all the world's religions come from the East. They come from Egypt, which I had mentioned in the Bible is known as Abraham. Abraham is the literal, basically translation for the esoteric, hidden land of Ham, which would be Egypt. So when they say Abraham, the land of Ham, they're talking about Egypt, okay, in the Bible, etc. So all the religions are Abrahamic religions, meaning that they come from Egypt. Hey, what's up, Stefan? Glad you're watching the video, everybody out there. These videos are going on YouTube as well. I know there's some YouTubers that are watching this, and understand that I do these live on Facebook. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you're just getting this video, you could also join the live community on Facebook, facebook.com/Gnostic Warrior. So, getting back to the demon. The ancient Egyptians, who I had said basically were the founders of the religions that we have today that have evolved and developed over thousands of years, they had this devil, this serpent that they called Apep. And this Apep, this devil worm, they had written in their hieroglyphs all throughout their temples and etc. And they talked about this devilish worm called Apep who would attack the people through the waters at night. And he was one of the main enemies to Ra. Okay, all these stories of these gods and these goddesses and these devils and these demons like Apep, etc., remember, don't take them literally. You know, they're not actual people or things happening, but they're basically metaphors to what's happening on the so within and the as without, on the as above and the so below. So remember that the Egyptians and the Gnostics, they didn't necessarily think we were all individual humans, etc., but that we were all connected through these energies on the as above, so below, as within, so without. And it was through the development of the religion that they had found that there's unseen forces that are affecting our human essence, our energies, our bodies. And these unseen forces, they try to interpret and basically give meaning to with their stories, such as Apep being the main enemy of Ra. And keep in mind, Ra is essentially the light. Ra would be akin to Jesus or to Lucifer in the Egyptian religion. Ra was the light, the everlasting light. Okay, so if we see that this worm, this devilish Apep god from Egypt, was the main enemy to the light. He was the main enemy to Ra. He was the guy that came out at night and swam through the waters, and he sought to undo water. And there's this story about Apep issuing this mucus-like substance and capturing his foes in this mucus-like substance. Okay, and this mucus-like substance, I want you to put in modern terms and modern science. As I'd mentioned, you know, part of my idea of the Order of the Gnostics. Hey, thanks for all the kind words, guys. I appreciate it. You know, the main idea with the Order of the Gnostics in my work is to kind of put all the ancient teachings to a modern context and use science to make explanations of what they were talking about to help make sense. So, this serpent, this Apep, I believe is representative of the parasites that swim in our blood. Okay, so what they were talking about, and I believe at the time that the Egyptians didn't have the modern technology that we have now as far as microscopes, etc., to quantify and to actually identify these serpents in their blood that they called Apep. And we know today, as I had mentioned in my other videos, is that we're essentially composed of 99% of these parasites of what the ancients in Hermeticism and Gnosticism had called elementals. So if we were to measure the human DNA in our body, as I had mentioned before, it's as big as our big toe. So all the other genetic matter in our body is parasites. It's basically bacteria and fungi and pinworms and tapeworms and stuff. And, they talk about this apep worm in the Egyptian mysteries being like 15 feet long, right? And if you go on, say, for example, I think some of you have watched Monsters and Me, and the shows of all these worms and these parasites inhabiting people. And we're not just talking about in New Guinea or in Africa, in some third world country. Most of these people are here in the West, the United States, and it's always, oh my God, I didn't realize that this could happen. I could have a worm in my brain, or I could have this worm in my stomach and it take over me and kill me. That's apep, guys. That's the devil that owns the world. Okay? And that's what I believe they were talking about, the ancient Egyptians, with this apep that issued this discharge. And if we look at these parasites and these fungi being parasites, so parasites, the fungi are just tiny, tiny, tiny little microscopic parasites that consume their prey. They're the great consumers of all this world. They make us consumers here in the West look like nothing. We're like little worms to them when it comes to consuming things, right? The fungi kingdom. So all these different entities inhabit our body. And what I've come to realize is that there's a war in this elemental world. And it's going to make sense to some of you guys, and some of you it might not. But the war is for us. It's for you. It's to commandeer this. How many parasites, how many fungi, how many animals, how many things do you see around you walking and talking besides humans? Wouldn't the human body, if you were a little parasite or a little worm or whatever it may be, wouldn't it be like if you were to grow up, wouldn't you go, I want to be like him, kind of like coveting thy neighbor, right? I want to be like him, to walk and talk and express myself and move and shit. But no, you're stuck in like a little worm body. You can't do much, So I believe that there's a science here, and this science, to some of you, won't sound crazy when you understand that there are parasites and fungi that are taking over insects and animals, and I believe also humans, through their blood, their central nervous system, etc. So I believe that these ancients, the Gnostics, knew exactly what they were talking about. In the Bible, they talk about the serpent being the great dragon, the devil, having ownership of this earth, of this world. Okay, and I believe that we're part of this worm, right? Because we're born as Yaldabaoth. We're born as a sperm going in to the ovula to create that light. And God said, let there be light, and so there was light. And so we're essentially, guess what we are, guys? We're the evolvement of that worm, of that sperm. We're essentially Yaldabaoth, who eventually grew eyes and a mouth and started talking. So my belief is that over time, over millions of years, that we evolved from this serpent, from this worm. And I know some of you might think that's kind of crazy or whatever, but if you think about when we're born, we're a little sperm, we're a little worm. And then all of a sudden, we're like a tadpole, right? Like a lizard or a frog, and we start growing arms and different things. And then we grow up out of the womb, and we're like a little dinosaur, for like a year. Wah, wah, ah, give me food, ah. And I see this like with my kids, they're literally little worms, they're like, they have no idea. All they want to do is eat, poop, pee, and do what they want and get booby, from their mother, etc. It's just like all this fleshly desires, right, in the baby. And it's like they're this worm, and they eventually evolve to be humans. maybe, or beasts, right? As I had talked about in my last podcast. And how do they evolve to be humans or gods and goddesses? It's through gnosis, it's through knowledge, through learning how to live and act, and to rise above our fallen wormly states. That's what it's all about. So I believe that this religion of the serpent, this religion of the worm, is what evolved into Gnosticism, what evolved into Christianity, etc., and then it got fine-tuned over the years by the Gnostics, who were the Sethians, the church fathers. I had said before, the Romans are essentially the sons of Seth. The sons of Seth are the sons of Pharaoh Seth being the great conqueror who conquered most all of the world. And the Greeks had talked about this, etc. And again, the Romans were just the Gnostics at the time, who had banded together with certain Greeks and certain Jewish factions and the Levite priesthood to create the Roman Catholic religion that we see today, that is also part of the Orthodox, Greek Orthodox religion, and also the Russian religion today. So we're all cousins, essentially, all these empires, and that's why we all get along. You know, the things going on with Russia right now, you know, to get into politics for a second so you guys understand, is that, yeah, there's a lot of geopolitics going on, but the facts are we've always teamed up with Russia in the end. World War I, World War II. We fought tooth and nail until it came down to war, and then we teamed up together, and we went out and we fought because we're cousins, guys. They just happen to be our masters. And a lot of people don't understand that, but some of you will in the near future. And that's why, in the coming world, my belief is that the powers that be, the true masters of Jerusalem, the rulers of the Third Rome, being that of Russia, will institute a worldwide religion, and that religion, unfortunately, it's not going to be Gnosticism, guys. It's going to be Christianity. And again, I'm not the one who calls the shots or decides what is going to happen, but that is exactly the plan. And you'll see this in the coming years. And they will unite under the banner of Christianity as we have before, and there will be a last crusade coming here soon. So in any event, let's get back to this worm. I don't know. Good morning, brother. Good morning, Shane. Let's see if there's any questions. You like my impersonation of a baby, huh, Max? Well, I want to talk about this worm, this serpent, that I believe is a major part of all these religions, and I believe that the reason they had adored the serpent is because where all earthly knowledge comes from. Okay, we're talking about the knowledge to make weapons, to make buildings, Freemasons, the knowledge to write books, right? They call the bookworm. So all this knowledge descends from the Father, and the Father being that of the worm being that, the father of us, and us being the descendants of the worm. So if we're to honor our Father and honor the true first being that created us humans, we're going to honor the serpent. And as I had mentioned before, it was the Latin Church Fathers who had changed the worm to serpent, because before our modern interpretations today, they used to read worm all throughout the Egyptian mysteries and also the Judaic mysteries, etc., and the Grecan mysteries. They all talked about the worm, and then the Latin Church Fathers had changed it to serpent. And this serpent became basically the allegorical symbol for the worm, which they called him in ancient days. And Jesus talks about in the Torah, which is the Old Testament, he says, I'm a worm. And he talks about being the son of a worm. And it's from this wormly flesh that we rise from our lower states to walk, to be upright men, to be humans, and to not be like our parasitic forefathers. So this idea, I believe, ties to science, guys. And this science I talk about in the Science of 666, and then also the last video podcast I did, where I talk about how these demonic parasites almost had taken my family. And I tell about the story of the fungi and the houses that we rented and how they were taking us over and how they can control your mind and control your appetites, etc. So I believe that there's various parasites and fungi that can commandeer our bodies. If you've ever researched the liver fluke, guys, interesting parasite there. You'll see that this parasite, it resides mainly in the liver, and people that have hepatitis C and problems with their liver and drinking seem to have problems with this liver fluke. And this liver fluke, I have found, can also evade the central nervous system, etc. And then when you research this liver fluke and you look under it under a microscope, it has like 2 horns, almost like a devil. And I'm kind of eyeing this liver fluke, and the reason I'm saying this because I haven't identified the true parasite that they were talking about, because I believe there is one out of these various kingdoms that is somewhat of a ruler of the other parasites. And I know this sounds kind of funny, right? So this relates to, I believe, we, the people, the walking worms, right, that could talk, etc., we actually are the as without representatives of these as within elementals. Okay, and I know this might be a little weird for some of you guys, right? But if we look at our world right now, the race wars, you look back in ancient Egypt, and we have the pharaohs, and they're smiting their enemies. I know other people would think that there's some kind of symbolic thing going there, but they're fucking killing other races and other worms, guys. They're not freaking, doing something symbolically and killing the lower self. They're freaking killing other races, other tribes, and they're wiping them out because that's their job. Why would that be their job? Who would order this? My thoughts are that they knew that there was a war, right? There was a war that was as within and so without. In order to win this war, they had to win the war as within, so without. They couldn't do it just one or the other. It actually had to be win on both ends. So they identified, I believe, these parasites and these worms as races, right? Just like we have different parasites, we have different fungi, we have different genuses of these different things. And if you study these parasites, guys, and you study these fungi, etc., which I had said are parasites, they fight each other. Guys, they kill each other. They're not friends. They're fucking warring each other for taking over that body or to get to eat that rotten carcass or whatever, right? So they may coexist, but in the end, it's a war for domination of the earth. And what's going on now with the humans and the parasites, right? We human walking parasites. We're doing the same thing. Are we named races for no reason? Have people persecuted other worms for no reason, just because they look different? Or is this a battle that is as ancient as we are? Makes you think. Back in the old days, we used to live in our own bee colonies, right? Our own worm colonies. We didn't associate with other worm tribes, other parasites, other serpents, other devils. We kind of separated. And then over time, as agriculture came in and things started happening and knowledge came in from the worm, the serpent, we started evading and conquering other worms. We got the knowledge that we could toil the soil and basically, wait for that fruit to grow or those vegetables to grow or for that chicken to produce eggs. Or we could just go take that other shit, that other worm shit. We could literally go over there in one day and we can have enough food and money to last us forever. Okay, so if you're basically the leader of your worm race, and you're using knowledge to survive and to be strong, and you're fighting, you're having incursions against other worm tribes, etc., don't you think you would get the knowledge and the know-how to go, you know what? If we conquer these people, we take them over, we could basically enslave them. They do all the work for us. They basically toil the soil. They act like the little worms, and then we get basically a majority of their profits of their food, and then they get enough food just to live and to have a house. So that's the nature of slavery, worms enslaving worms. And we see that in the science of demonic possession. And I know a lot of you out there, you got a short attention span, and I could be a little bit long-winded. I think the average watch time on some of my videos for the people that view this, just to show you what a short attention span people have, is like 1 minute, right? So if I was to appeal to the 99% of the people that would watch this video, I'd have to make a 1 minute video to make their little worm, poor, time habits, make them happy, So thank you for you guys out there that are kind of listening through this to the end, because I make sense. I may go off a little bit, but I make sense of these teachings. So, what I believe happens with these fungi, with these demon parasitic elementals, is they commandeer our bodies, our blood. And that was the story of Apep in the Egyptian mysteries, of swimming through the waters at night, just like the parasites do. They're most active at night. The tapeworms, the pinworms, they come out of your butt. They come out of your nose. They go into your teeth. And that's when they eat the most, because we're not busy cleaning our bodies and doing things. So they get to kind of feast on our carcasses as we're sleeping. And this, if we don't take care of ourselves and clean our garments and stuff, and then all their carcasses go on our pillows and on our sheets and on our clothes and all their shit, and then they just keep, remultiplying, etc., in our environments, and before we know it, we're being taken over by these demonic parasites, right? These fungi, these pinworms, these tapeworms. And that's what it's always been about. It's about us defending our big toe, which I've told you guys is about as much human DNA as we have, against the 99% of the parasites and the worms in our body that want to take our big toe for themselves. Okay, so if that makes sense for you, I hope it does, because it does for me, is that there's a war. And there's a war for you, and your soul, and your body. And it's our job to win it by rising above our wormly flesh. All right, I hope that makes sense to you guys. So that's the idea of Gnosticism, of all religions. And that's why we saw Jesus, St. Michael, crushing the serpent. All right? They're crushing the parasites and the worms that control their flesh, and they're exercising their big toe, right? That's, it's onto their foot, and they're pointing to Jupiter, to the light, right? Because that's where the light is. That's where they come from. They ascend to the light. They don't let these worms, these parasites that control their flesh, control their mind and their spirit. That's it. You want to be saved? Transcend your flesh, transcend these worms, transcend these parasites, and by all means, you've got to cleanse yourself, and you've got to detox yourself of these demonic parasites. And remember, at the beginning of this video podcast, I said the name demon actually means all wise, all intelligent. Okay, so when I say demon, I mean a wise motherfucker. And sorry for my French there a little bit. I get a little excited on my rants, but so these fungi, these parasites are wise. Okay, they know what's going on, they know what they're doing, and if you study them in science, everything that I'm saying here is being backed up by modern science. Okay, these guys are smart, they know what they're doing. They've been doing this for millions and millions of years. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, anyways, if you're having any issues health-wise with mucus, etc., like I have a little mucus issue right now, and I know it's being caused by the parasites because they issue this mucus so they could basically grow within your body, and all their egg sacs and everything can basically coat your lungs, your throat, and everything, and they start just multiplying. So this mucus, I had told you, the Egyptians had talked about this substance that was issued from Apep that would snag his enemies. And I believe that this substance is the mucus that people get from these parasites. And fungi do the same thing. All the different worms, the pinworms, the tapeworms, the liver flukes, they all issue this type of substance, So when you get mucus and you're coughing up stuff, you have a problem with parasites and fungi in your body, and you need to at first dissolve that mucus. So this gets into alchemy. So something you've done, and this could be just you living in Southern California. You know, I'm here in one of the dirtiest areas in the world. It's one of the most beautiful, but it's also deadly. Sometimes I don't know why I'm here, but here I am, and within a couple months, I started getting a cough, and I started coughing up mucus. So I know here there's a lot of freaking parasitic humans. There's a lot of parasites in the air. Okay, when you see a human and you know they're not awake, and you go to Walmart, these people, and they're all overweight, don't think of them as humans. Just imagine probably 1 trillion parasites in that one person. That's what you're seeing, guys. You're not seeing fucking humans. You're seeing parasites. And guess what's happening with those parasites when you go into these towns like here in Southern California? When you start interacting with these parasites, what do you think happens to you? Do you think you're just like, you have this force field around you like you're this Jedi? Or do you think possibly that these parasites that are infecting all these people we're coming in contact or coming into our aura? You better believe that's what's happening, because that is what's happening. We just can't see them with our 2 eyes. But they're coming in through our food. So the parasites that are preparing our food at the restaurant and picking their butt and their nose, or the workers, the Mexicans, whoever they are, nothing against Mexicans, but if they got these parasites and they're touching our shit, we're getting their parasites, and it's just going over and over and over and over. So my belief is when you get into a highly populated center with a lot of human parasites, which I had said are the as without representatives of the as within, what's really going on in their bodies, what's going on in this world, the more parasites, the more people, the more screwed up and the more sick you can get quicker if you don't get what's going on. So that's one of the reasons I actually live in the mountains, away from a lot of these parasites. I try to get a little land, if I can, half acre. If you can get 5-10 acres, I think that's awesome, because you could work on your big toe, that human essence that you have left, to defeat these parasites. So that's one of the reasons I spend a lot of money on my rent, because I don't want to be in an apartment or a condominium unit with a million other parasites parasiting off me, and their stupid parasite-controlled bodies, etc. I kind of want to stay away from those people, so that way I could work on myself and my own problems and conquer that parasite, right? So if you're around, it's just like drugs. Think of this, guys. It's like drugs or food if you have an addiction, or drinking, etc. When you're quitting drinking, you don't go to the bar to hang out with your old friends to quit drinking. All right? When you're trying to quit drugs, whether it's pills or cocaine or something, you don't go down to the pharmacy or to your doctor to get more pills, or you don't go to the crack neighborhoods to get more crack, right? You stay away. You know, that's one of the first things to getting healthy is avoidance. Okay? To being a Gnostic, to being a wise man, the first thing you need to avoid are all those other parasites, etc., so you could work on your own parasitic self, because you got a lot of work to do, right? We all know that. We're not perfect. So naturally, if you want to get right and you want to be human, you want to be a Gnostic, and you can't hang around a bunch of other parasites, because they'll unduly influence you. Energy-wise, mentally, physiologically, physically, mentally, everything, you know? So that's the idea of me going to towns where they're a little bit small town. I pay a little bit more for my rent. I have more land. I like gated properties. I like them on hills. It's something I think that I've always done in past lifetimes, and that's what I do via my intuition. Every time I do that, I excel. Something dropped on my head. Everything in my life seems to go better when I don't hang around too many parasites. Okay? Because those parasites bring out the parasite in me, because I'm still trying to work on myself and conquer myself, which I have said before, it's a lifelong battle, and I believe that can happen in many lifetimes. So that's my theory there, is that when you're on the Gnostic path, and that's why all the sages, the Gnostics, they used to retire to their cells, they call them, and they would leave basically the city or their towns or their tribes, and they would go and kind of be alone for years at a time sometimes, guys. They would literally go to these little huts in the middle of nowhere where everybody knew where they were, but they knew that they had to leave them alone because these were God men. They dedicated their lives to the light and to the truth. And they didn't want to be around all these other humans that were basically parasites acting like worms. So they chose to dedicate their lives to their big toe, to God, and then basically go out on their own. And that's the nature of the world. If we look at the world, as I had said, the 99% of the people are those that are asleep. They're the worms, right? Then the 1%, you and I, are awake. So it's like we're the big toe of humanity, right? We're that little 1% human that's trying to hold on to it. We're trying to hold on to that human divinity that we have, that we forgot that we had, because it's our big toe. And that 99% of the parasites makes us forget. Because they're wise, guys, right? The word demon comes from daemon. It means wise. So that's what I believe where we're at today. And eventually, this race of worms is going to rule the world. One of them. And it's being played out right now because we need to have a king, a kingly worm, who leads the other worms to their divinity, to the Christ within, to their light. Okay? That's the idea of a teacher and a Gnostic and a philosopher, is we're trying to lead you to the light, to your big toe, through the maze of the worms and the minotaurs, to defeat them, and eventually defeat your own wormly self. So, good morning. But, yeah, I'm going to get in the shade here and answer a couple questions. I know it's a little bit longer of a walk and talk today than normal, and I know some of you only have so much time or have the attention span of a worm, but we need to take these teachings and apply them to our life. And I think once we start thinking in this sense that I'm talking about right now, it kind of makes it common sense. You love your big toe. Hopefully you don't have fungus on your big toe, right, guys? So that one toe, some of us, what little toe we have left is being taken over by the parasites, right? The athlete's foot. I had a problem with it, and I've been defeating the parasites and the fungi. So I actually think when your toes are being taken over by fungi and by athlete's foot, that's a representative of what's going on the so within and the as without in our world. So, yeah, so these parasites, they consume our flesh while we live, guys. That's what they're doing, okay? And they're commandeering our central nervous systems, our bodies, our brains at the same time to basically do their will. As I'd said in my past podcasts and videos, and I've written articles on GnosticWarrior.com, these parasites are able to commandeer the central nervous system of ants, animals, insects, beetles, bees, etc. So if they're able to do that with these different insects and animals, wouldn't they be able to do that with us humans? Yes, they will. Just science is basically keeping that knowledge, that gnosis away from mankind right now because they don't want you to know. But they're letting us know by having these studies put out there, because we're no different. We're all the same. We're all interconnected with these insects, with these animals, etc. So I believe that all these major diseases that we're having right now, tumors, etc., are caused by these parasites, by these demons, by these worms, etc. And different types of worms and parasites as well are doing the damage to people out there. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the video podcast, and the support. Thomas Smith, thank you, brother. Thomas was an old worm friend of mine that we got along really well for several years, and then one day we had a fight over worm philosophies, etc., and just a debate, and then he disrespected me in a certain way that I didn't like, and I defriended him, which I do now instead of getting too crazy with people. And then he came back to me and he apologized. And I think that's awesome. I think when people make a mistake, whether it's myself or another person, we should be able to forgive them. And when you have basically the divine energy and the humbleness to say sorry to someone when you do them wrong, and that person doesn't forgive you, that person is a worm. They're not acting from the divine spirit. So I forgive you, Thomas. I forgive those people that have come at me sideways if they ask for forgiveness. I think that's huge. And I think that's part of learning how to die is by learning to live. So if we forgive people, we forgive our enemies, we forgive people, the haters, etc., it helps us to learn how to die and to have better lives. Jerry, thanks for watching. Yeah, Max, the anti-parasitic protocol. I believe it's important that we restore the balance of our body. So, as I had mentioned before, guys, I don't believe that you can get rid of these demonic elemental parasites and fungi 100%. Okay? They are part of us and we are part of them. But the idea is to rebalance our bodies and to get them in check. Right? It's like having a herd of cattle, right? And you have a shepherd and a dog. And if you don't keep them in check, they'll go out crazy and they'll go out on their own and they'll run and they'll probably get killed. You know, so that's the idea of keeping your chemicals, energies in check, is that you keep these elementals, these parasites in check, right? So they can't commandeer the central nervous system. And I believe that you could actually take the power back if they have taken you over, which I feel they have done to me in my life more times than one. And I was able to have a little left of my big toe, my humanity left, to be able to understand what was going on and to take this body back to be a human instead of a little worm parasite, right? So, yeah, kill those parasites in the gut. There's a lot of different things that I used for fungi and for molds that got my family sick that I've talked about in a previous podcast that also kill these parasites, and they also alkaline the body. So the key is to kill the parasites and the fungi, alkalize the body, get all the vitamins and the nutrients that you need, because they're stealing them all from you, because the idea is they want to consume your flesh and then they want to spread their parasites and their spores around the world. That's kind of what they do. They eat, they shit, they multiply, and then they rinse and they repeat. All right? But there is an intelligence going there. They know what they're doing. They're able to take over other entities, including you and I. So, probiotics, prebiotics. Yeah, so probiotics, essentially, there's a big craze with that right now. And the reason why is because we've been killing all the good bacteria that have been keeping these worms, these parasites, these fungi in check, right? So, we have these, as I had said, these God-given chemical energies, and we're made perfect. And then what happens is we take these drugs and these things by these magicians. So you guys know, the word pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmakia. And the word pharmakia in Greece used to mean sorcerer. So when you go to the pharmacy, and when you go to these black magicians that say, hey, take this antibiotic, take this antibiotic, take this antibiotic. That's literally, take this you got some, take this antibiotic. You got this, take this antibiotic. You got that, take this antibiotic. So there's like 20 different antibiotics, and for every ailment you have, the doctor gives you an antibiotic, right? And then what do you know? Everybody has gut problems. They're sick. No one's getting better. They're getting resistant to antibiotics, etc., because these antibiotics are killing the good soldiers that are keeping the worms and the parasites, the fungi in check. So if you're to take over this human body by these worms and these parasites, etc., and these fungi, you got to offset the body and make it in balance and then kill some of the defenders of the good, which are the good bacteria in our bodies. So we take these antibiotics. When we have an ailment, we're wanting to listen to the doctor who we're told is this great sage and he's going to cure us. And then we keep listening to him and they make us sicker and sicker because they're killing all the good defenders of these fungi and these parasites in our bodies, so we can get taken over and we're easily controlled zombie humans that have no humanity left in them. That's us. That's what's happening in a nutshell. So the probiotic craze, Gnostics, okay, like I'd said before, everybody in the health movement, they're Gnostics and alchemists. They just don't call themselves that. They get what's going on, they saw it, they researched, and they understood that in order to restore our bodies, we have to institute some of this bacteria that we've been killing all our lives because we've been going to these guys in these white coats who've been telling us to take this pill that kills all the good bacteria in our gut because they said it would cure this disease. But it actually makes us sicker and sicker and sicker. And you think about all the antibacterial soaps. Now, after 20, 30 years of using antibacterial soap, now it's no good for you guys. Sorry, we made a mistake. Antibacterial soap's no good for you. It actually is worse. So we've been killing all this good bacteria, these good invaders on our skin, etc., these defenders, and so these worms, these parasites, have been taking us over, having a full reign on humanity, and that's what we have right now. So, yeah, I know in the military you guys are given a lot of stuff, Max. August, hey, glad you like this information. I know you're into the parasitic knowledge and teachings of these demon worms, etc., that we know is human and intelligent, and as we know of our friends and our family all around the world. So the idea, again, guys, the idea is if this is your path, right? If you want to be a worm and a parasite and a black magician, that's your choice. You're just going to suffer the karma of that path, of those choices. I don't condemn you. You condemn yourself. If you choose to walk the higher path, the divine path, the path of the human, to shine to the light and exercise the rights of your big toe over those of the 99% of the bacteria and fungi and parasites in your body, and you want to actually control your mind, you want to control your life, you need to act better than these worms. You need to conquer them and conquer their appetites, because they're the ones that are making you do bad things. They're the ones that are making you addicted to certain things, etc. So you got to conquer them. And to conquer them, you need to conquer the flesh. And so that's the idea of Gnosticism. That's the idea of Christianity. Because that's what we're doing, is we're conquering the flesh and we're rising to our Christ-like states. So glad you like the information, guys. I'm going to be wrapping up here in a second. It's my day off. I'm going to do another video podcast later this evening, so stay tuned. And I'm actually going to do a sit-down one, and I'm going to actually present some of this research in slides and everything the best way that I can. So I'm going to do that probably today or tonight, 6 or 7. So stay tuned, please. Hey, Michael. Yeah, thank you, bro. Thanks for the love and the likes. Yeah, these parasitical entities also feed off our thoughts and our emotions. So I agree with you, Michael. This is basically the whole gamut. As I had mentioned, they seek to control us 100%. So obviously, one of the ways to do that, what would be the perfect way to control someone from the get-go? Right here, brother. So I believe that's the first thing they start controlling, is the thoughts and the emotions. And then once they get that going, the body follows, right? And I believe, as I had mentioned, that the ancient Egyptians had knew of the science, and the governments of today know of the science. Nothing new under the second sun, guys, right? So this science, when we see the urea, the cobra coming out of the pharaoh, right? If I'm the man in the know, I'm the worm in the know, I know what's going on in the so within, as without, as above, so below. I got all this power. I can control the worms with this power, right? That's why the sage, the man that's in control of all this knowledge, this power, he can control cobras with his little flute, right? He can go up to a cobra with his head, right? The Nagas, the Indian soothsayers, and they can go up right to their face and kiss a cobra, right? Because they're in control of this power. The pharaohs, the priesthood of yesteryear and today, they know of this. You keep people in their wormly states, in their satanic, devilish states, and you let the worms and the parasites rule. What do you need? You just need a crook, and you basically need to direct the worms, basically like a herd, right? So you play the music, right? We got the Katy Perrys, the U2s, they're playing the music, and then we got the crowds, the worms. right? So that's why Hollywood's so powerful. We can control worms with music, with tones, with rhythms, right? Woo. People would die for their music stars, etc., because they're worms being controlled by these stars, these people that don't even know what they're doing with their voices and their music, but they're controlling worms. So that's why we don't really have divine music or music that's brought to bring the divine out of us and the knowledge like we used to have, right? We get all the crap music now, right? Controlling the worms, the techno and the rap gonna kill. It's all fucking worm music, guys. It's to keep us worms all in check. So if a bunch of worms don't know what's going on, they start listening to this shit, they start acting like the fucking other worms that are saying the stuff, so we just emulate these other worms, not knowing what's happening because we're a mind-controlled parasite, and then we just continue that cycle, and so we're easily controlled. So it's the perfect government plan to rule the worm, you and I. And this is how the world has got to where it's at today. You hear about this worm in the Freemasonic mysteries, guys. And if you guys are Freemasons, anybody out there, you might know the story of Solomon's temple. And Solomon, he goes to this demon, right? And this demon is called Asmodeus. And Asmodeus is this ghastly substance. And he has a friend who happens to be a little worm. And this worm, his name is Shamir. So the Freemasons, King Solomon, takes this worm and he helps build Solomon's temple. You and I, guys, we're Masons and we didn't even know it. Imagine that. King Solomon has been leading us the whole time, and that little Shamir worm has been in all of us. So this Shamir worm, as I had mentioned, is this parasite that is used to build Solomon's temple. It's used by the masters of Jerusalem, the masters of Rome, to get things done. It's how they do it. But the story of rising above this flesh is there for all of us to do. And if we looked again to Christianity, as I had mentioned before, Gnosticism is basically the foundation of Christianity, because the Gnostics founded the Catholic Church, as I had mentioned. They just happened to be the winning sect. People keep saying that the Gnostics died, that they were all wiped out. But the facts are, the Gnostics are still here. And we find them in the Catholic religion just means universal. And these teachings of Gnosticism are encoded throughout all of the biblical scriptures, guys. And I know a lot of people out there, they get to the narrative and the propaganda and, oh, no way, they're not Gnostic, they're far from it. I told you we got an exoteric version, being that of the religions that we see in modern society, and then we have the esoteric, which is what I'm giving you here, and what Freemasonry gives you, Rosicrucianism, etc. And that's why the churches have always persecuted the philosophers, the Freemasons, the Gnostics, etc., because they were giving it to you like it is. That's why Socrates was put to death by the state, because he was guilty of teaching the youth, corrupting the youth with knowledge, of teaching them the truth. And unfortunately, throughout time, those in power had felt threatened by the philosophers that had given the truth, etc. But today, in order to keep their power, my thoughts are that these teachings need to get out there in order to change this world, change the society. So, hey, thank you, Diana. God bless you. Alicia, what music do you like, though? Kind of interesting. I grew up pretty much punk rock. If you look at this shirt, Social Distortion, Orange County Band, California. So I grew up pretty much punk rock. I liked some metal, but all that type of music that appealed mainly to my wormly flesh, it brought out some of the aggression inside of me, and I feel that that's what kind of punk rock does. But I've met a lot of punk rock bands that are very intelligent. So there are bands out there that I feel are in these genres, whether it be metal or whether it be punk rock or whatever, that are putting some good gnosis, some good knowledge out there through their music. And, I'm more into the melodic stuff now and to a little bit more slow, because I know how the music affects my body and my wormly flesh. So I try to watch what I put into my brain, whether it be music or images, etc. So, good morning. Hey, thank you for sharing this video, everybody. Yeah, listen to your mantras, definitely. Hey, Christy. Awesome. I know a lot of you guys are working and you can't watch these videos. So I thank you for tuning in and leaving that comment. So watch it when you can. And hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, just let me know. Much love to you, Christy. Okay, I don't know what else I could kind of talk about in this video today. I'm gonna actually walk to the gym now. I did almost an hour walk already, and then I'm gonna hit the gym. Try to do an hour and a half to 2 hours a day right now, and keep the body moving, keep from sitting on my butt. There's a big truck going by here, so, or actually a little truck, just a loud one. Anyways, so these demons, these parasites, these fungi, as I'd mentioned, we got to clean ourselves. We got to clean our bodies, and we got to cleanse ourselves from them to realkaline our bodies and to live healthy lives. So I feel that these teachings, not only on Gnosticism, but on health and alchemy, they all interrelate with one another, and that's part of being a Gnostic warrior and being a Gnostic or being a Freemason or whatever, is you got to get these rites and these rituals right to your path. And so I've done certain things in my life to start defeating the demon worm APEP, right? And to recognize when I'm being influenced by these parasites, by these demon worms, etc. And, some of them I believe are taught through religion and different things, but I believe that there's two basically beings that we have. One is our divine being, our divine selves, and then one is this demon worm APEP. And that the divine thoughts, the divine light, those are what we should listen to when we have those good thoughts, etc. I don't know where I'm getting at right now. I'm getting a little bit tired. Hey, Roxana, hello. So, I guess later on when I do a video, I'll talk more about that. You were going to make some toast and butter, but my podcast turned you away, Alicia. Getting some pickles now. Pickles are good. Vinegar, right? Vinegar, they don't like that too much. So I feel like, when your stomach gets growly, that noise, I actually think those are the worms and the parasites in your gut. Feed me. Right? So that's why fasting helps you. You starve the beast, you starve these parasites, kill them out, and then you could flush them out your gut. That'll help you. You can kill them with grapefruit seed extract, oregano oil. You got to put things in you that will kill those parasites in your gut, so they're not always asking to be fed. And then eventually you could take back your central nervous system. You start cleaning them in your blood. And I have an article called The Science of Demon Possession that I'm going to put on the blog, The Gnostic Warrior, so that way you guys could check it out. And I'm going to get my workout on. I'm going to drive right now to the gym. I got a little bit too long of a walk, and I already walked long enough today. And sorry if this video kind of went in and out. Alicia, right, most of the time we aren't even hungry. It's the worms of the body taking over the mind. Correct, Alicia. I believe that the way we live, that the way we think, over these last few thousand years, as I'd mentioned, we've been living in the worm world, right? So they talk about this in Revelation, the great dragon, who is the prince of the earth, and I'm talking about this worm entity, this consciousness, this lower vibration, as they put all humanity in here so they could build Solomon's temple and conquer this world, and that's where we're at now. So this appetite that we have, it's unnatural. The way we are now is unnatural, and we need to get back to how we used to live eventually, but it's going to take time. It took thousands of years to get here. we're pretty screwed up. We got a lot of work to do in order to evolve forward. So, yeah, a lot of our appetites, etc., they're not human. They're parasitic. They're wormly. As I had mentioned in all my podcasts recently, how much human DNA you have is in your big toe. The rest of your body, 99 point whatever % of it, is other parasitic, demonic entities, elementals, fungi, bacteria, viruses, etc. Okay, so the idea is to exercise your big toe, Alicia, and everyone out there, to be that human, that little humanity you got left, and to conquer those serpents. And it's a big job, right? You got one big toe to fight the rest. But we know that spark of divinity that is within all of us. And we got to starve the beasts. We got to starve that lower worm, right? When we want to do bad things, when we want to hurt someone, when we want to lie and cheat and steal, anything like that, I believe, is unnatural, and it's not of the divine energy and the light. As I had mentioned before, I've been that beast. I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to exercise the rights of my big toe. I want to be a human. I want to ascend to the light, to Christ, the Father of all men and women, right? Jupiter, that's where we get our divine energy, our phosphorus. And do you know these parasites, they're the eaters of Ra, right? Apep, he's the eater of the light. These parasites love to take your light. They love to take your energy and your spirit and your essence, and they like to take it for themselves, and they like to control your body, tell you what to eat and drink. So we're just these big walking parasitic worms, right? So crush that worm, crush those parasites, crush that fungi, clean your shit out of your body, clean your thoughts from those parasitic worms wanting to eat that extra butter and toast, right? And that beer, that extra beer, it's just all going to add more spirits and fungi to your body. This is what's going on in this world. That's why we live in a demonic, parasitic economy, and that's why everyone around us, including our leaders, our politicians, are just big worms looking to devour our light, right? So if you think about what I'm saying here in a common sense way, but also think of the esoteric thing that I'm saying here, it all makes sense, right? We just got a bunch of big worms around us looking to steal our shit, parasite us off of us, and take our light, our knowledge. That's all it's been for the last 3,000 years. And that's all they're doing, and that's all they sought to do. You know, they got the serpent on the pharaoh, and they're controlling all the other worms because the worms don't know what the hell's going on, that they're worms, right? So in order not to be a worm and to be controlled, you got to do what? You got to rise above your wormly flesh, like Jesus, like Christo, like a Gnostic, right? And use knowledge. And Jesus said, my people weren't destroyed, but for their lack of knowledge, their lack of gnosis. So don't be destroyed for your lack of knowledge of the stuff that I'm telling you right now, and I've done in my last podcast, where I tie these ancient teachings to a modern gnosis and also to the science behind it. And everything that I say could be backed up, guys. If there's anybody out there that thinks I'm crazy, I get attacked every day, and I know who they are, the worms out there that are attacking me. But, you know, between you and I, if there's anybody out there who thinks I'm crazy or I don't know what I'm talking about or I'm not a Gnostic, I challenge you to a friendly debate in front of the people on Gnostic Warrior, YouTube, your own blog, your own podcast, whatever you want to do, and then we'll present our knowledge, our gnosis to the people and let them decide. We'll do an open philosophical debate like they used to do in the future. So if any of you guys out there, again, you don't like what I'm saying, but you're a Gnostic and you have some degree of dignity and you know that when people disagree, it doesn't mean you need to hate the guy or whatever, or call him names, ad hominem attacks, act like a church doctor or a father, etc. All right? If you want to challenge me, let's do it. Let's talk. Let's intellect to intellect, Gnostic to Gnostic. I've said this a few times. No one's taken me up on it, but I still get attacked. Little dogs on my ankles all the time, little worms trying to parasite off me in my YouTube and Facebook channels. But anyways, let me see if I have anything else here. You're welcome, Alicia, for the insight. Tune in more, sister. August, see? I'm able... Hey, the big worm dropped some big worm knowledge, brother. I mean, that's where it all comes from. We're remembering who we are, August. That's what it is, bro. We're all part of this worm kingdom, right? These worm tribes, right? Let's exercise our divinity, our light. Remember who we are. We're not Yalabah. We're Christos, brother. So, Michigan here. Hey, what's up, Tina? I know there's everybody around the world. I'm glad I can make you laugh. Yeah, Michael, Gnostics, we're the beautiful caterpillars spiritually evolving among the worms. Yeah, brother, and evolving into butterflies. My daughter loves the butterflies. I love caterpillars. So that's a great analogy, bro. And that's totally true. We're still crawling, bro. So that is true. We're not butterflies. We're not gods yet. So let's become humans. Let's become caterpillars amongst the worms for now. And then later we could worry about becoming gods. We got a lot of work to do. Forget about all that transhumanist shit. Let's do transbestiism. Let's transcend our beastly states. And then maybe sometime we can get into that transhumanism shit. You know, maybe that's when we're gods or goddesses. But I don't think we should merge with computers where we haven't even got this right yet. So, all right, cool. I love you guys. Thank you. Again, this is therapy for me. It helps me get everything out of my head and helps, hopefully, you guys understand what's going on with the world. Remember, the media, they're just worm magicians, right? Controlling the worms. So don't get caught up by all the politics and the bullshit, and the politicians are just big worms controlling the little worms, right? So you need a big worm to control the little worms. So if you want to be a worm, follow the media, follow the politicians, and follow the big alternative media guys if you want to be a worm. Okay, if you don't want to be a worm, turn off the other worms. Don't let them influence you and your emotions and your wormly appetites and all your defects, because they'll bring it all out of you, because that's their job, right? To keep the worms in motion, move them here, move them there, move them everywhere. That's what they do, right? Every day, every week, it's a new worm telling you guys what's going on, instead of you figuring out you're a worm and what the other worms are doing to you, and then trying to rise above the wormly state of everybody else. So it's real easy once you think about it, but it's hard because there's so many worms all around us and parasites. And I talked about that in my last video of how they influence you and how they bring you down to your beastly state. Have a great day too, Michael. All right, guys. That's pretty much it. If you have any more questions, let me know. Ask them below. I'm going to go hit the gym. Today is my leg day. Got to work out those legs. I'm the walking philosopher, but I got to put some muscle on those legs, because all these lifetimes of philosophizing, writing and reading, my legs have gotten skinnier, my head's gotten bigger, and my legs have gotten skinnier over the last few thousand years. I got a big up top. Us Gnostics, you know, we were big into boxing and wrestling and stuff like that, and running and walking, but we didn't have weight machines for our legs. So over time, a lot of us guys that have skinny legs and big heads, you're probably from the Gnostics, okay? The more you exercise a muscle, i.e. the head, the brain, the bigger it gets over time. I did actually an article on that. Those people that have big heads are smarter. So size matters, folks. All right. With the legs, I need help there. I'm not showing them right now, but they're not that skinny, guys. My wife says I have sexy legs. But gonna go work those out. That's the reason why us guys have some skinny legs. When you see a guy with skinny legs and a big head, go, that guy's a Gnostic. That guy's a philosopher. All right, guys. Love you. Have a great day. Peace.